Hello everyone, this is Mohamed from Python Ninja YouTube channel, and in this tutorial we will learn together the difference between class and instance attributes. The attributes that are inserted under the class directly are termed as class attribute. However, the attributes that are inserted under or within the init or constructor are termed as instance attribute. Let us translate what I described by mean of code. So the first thing to do is to build a class. As we learned in the previous tutorial, which is the first one, we can build a class or behavioral-oriented class by using the statement class. Then I assign the name for the class. I will give it Python developer. Okay. Then I use code. Okay, in the new line, reserving this indent or space, I will add a constructor. As we learned, the constructor is a special function, but we call it method, a special method in the view of object-oriented programming. So it is a special method that allows us to enter the attributes when I make a copy or when I clone instances. Okay, and I build the construction using diff, which is like the same statement when I design a function. Then I use double leading underscores, then I type init. Okay, and directly Python will insert self, and we say that self is an attribute that allows the class or allow instance to access to its own attributes. What are the attributes? The attribute could be name, or it could be age, for example, grade, or salary, or whatever. Okay. Now we define 4 attributes. Okay, and we will store these attributes because I want to access them later. Okay, how can we store these attributes? By using self, and I use like this form, self.name equal name, in which I store the value of the argument or temporary parameter name in self.name. I use also self.age to store the value of the parameter age, and I use self.grade to store the value of the grade, and I want to use self.salary, okay, to store the value of the argument or temporary parameter salary. And we learn together how can I make an instance from the Python developer class. For example, I will say py1 to be the first instance, and making instance implying like calling the name of the class. Then I have parentheses. As we introduce also inside the parentheses, I will insert the same number of arguments which are defined, or the same number of attributes. Let's shift from arguments to attributes. The same number of attributes which are defined within init constructor. So I have here 4. So I will install here the value of the corresponding attribute. For example, the value of the name could be Ali. Okay, the age of Ali will be 35. The grade will be senior, and the salary is a random salary. Okay, let us say that. Okay, now we created an instance. There is a possibility to create an infinite number, okay, of instances. For example, I can create another instance, py2, for example, following the same footprint. Okay, but I want to create here for Mira, and the age of Mira, for example, 52, and this could be junior, and the salary for her, for example, like this. Now we created instances, and we learned that we can also access the attribute of the instances when I call the variable that install or the object that install this instance, okay, then using .name. By this way I can access the attribute of this instance, okay. Similarly, we can access the attribute of the second instance. For example, I want to access the attribute name, okay. When I execute this line of code, then I can notice here that I have Ali and I have Mira, okay, as attribute or as the value of the attributes of name for the first instance and second instance. So name in this case is called instance attribute. Age also is called instance attribute, okay. So the instance attribute are the attributes that are defined within the init constructor like this, or it could be identified, okay, under the init without like including them in this line. But I can, for example, store self.gender, okay, and this is still this will be considered as instance attribute for the gender, okay. So the instance attributes are the attributes are come within them init constructor, and I can access this attribute at the instance level. For example, I cannot access these attributes from the class level. So we have two levels. We have the class level and we have the instance level. The class level, like when I want to print the Python developer, okay, which is the main class .name, I cannot, okay, do that, okay, because this name is not a class attribute. However, this Python developer is the main class, but I cannot access the instance attribute that are listed within init constructor based on the class level, okay. So we now understand that the instance attributes are the attributes that are related to the instance are come within the init constructor, okay. Now what if I will have, for example, an alias name, okay, or code name for these instances? For example, this Python developer and this Python developer both have the same alias name. For example, the alias name can be, for example, keyboard player. So because this is like generalized name among all class, among all instances, okay, then I use it under the class attribute. So when I build my class directly, okay, before reaching the constructor, which come from diff leading underscore init trailing to underscore init, before this I can identify my own class attribute. For example, I will introduce the alias name for all instances as, for example, keyboard, okay, a player, okay. Let's capitalize also player. So the difference between alias name, okay, and self.name is that this self.name and age and grade are defined within the instance, okay. So when I create the instance, I introduce these attributes and based on the instance level. But for the alias name, I already introduced it, okay. I give it value, which is keyboard player. I can also change the value from outside, but this will be similar for all instances, meaning that I print here the by.name, which is instance attribute. I can print by also .alias name, and the same here. I can print here also the by2, okay, print, okay, by2 .alias name. So I now printed the first instance attribute, which is Ali, okay, that has been stored in this attribute. Then I printed the instance attribute, okay, the class attribute of this instance, which is alias name, okay, which is keyboard player. Then I printed the from the second instance the name, okay, which is Mira here, and I printed from this instance the alias name, which is a class attribute, okay, which is the keyboard player. Remember, the instance, okay, for example, as by1 or by2 can access the class attribute as what we did here. by1 is an instance and able to access the alias name, okay. How can we access? We use dot, then the exact name of the attribute. So the first conclusion is that the instance can access the class attribute, and which is typical to this line, and for the second instance typical to this line. However, again, the class itself as Python developer cannot access the instance attribute, for example, .age, okay, .age is not inserted in the class level, but it's inserted in the instance level, so I cannot access this at the class level. So, however, the class level seems to be higher, but the class itself at the class level, okay, I cannot access the instance attribute. However, at instance level, okay, I can access the class attributes, okay. Now, I can change the class attribute for each instance, okay, not just access, but I can change. For example, I will say py1 dot alias name. For example, this will be programmer, okay, and I will go for this line, and I will say py2, okay, dot alias name will be, for example, let us magic coder, let us say like this. And even when this is, we will remove this line, okay, and now we can see we access the instance attribute dot name, okay. Then we change for this instance, I changed the class attribute, which is the alias name, to be programmer, okay, and I printed it now programmer. Then I printed the second instance, which is by2.name, the name from this instance, which here is Mira, and I changed the alias name for this instance to be, for example, magic coder. And if I print the original, okay, the original alias name here, I want to print for the Python developer, okay, which is the main class dot alias name, it will be the keyboard player, which is the original one, and I can change it. For example, the Python developer dot alias name, okay, will be, for example, like keyboard, okay, keyboard, like or something like. And now we change the class attribute at the class level, okay, from outside. So this is for today's tutorial, and by this tutorial I hope that now you can realize the difference between the class attribute, which are inserted directly under the class when we create the class, or the instance attribute, which are created under or within the init constructor, and how can we access the class attribute from the instance level, but we are unable to access the instance attributes, okay, based on the class, okay, level. Thank you.